Hi, Sarah.
Hey, Kirby, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing good, thank you.
Today, we're going to talk about the social media case, the one that happened in New Mexico, but also it's happening in a lot of places right now. And it's very interesting. Right, Sarah? I think you have something to share with us, Sarah.
Yes, I do. There was actually two court cases. So the first one was on March 24th, 2026. Meta was ordered to pay $375 million in civil penalties for harming children in the state of New Mexico, which is what you're referring to. And a second phase of that trial is actually scheduled for May 2026. And then the second case, which was also a major case against Meta and YouTube, happened in California, and it was done by a 20-year-old who started using the platforms when she was 6. And the specific arguments that were included with that case was the harms included anxiety, depression, body dysmorphia, and suicidal ideation. A parallel was actually drawn with big tobacco and addiction in that case, and she was awarded $6 million. So both of those cases are major cases right now. And then on top of that, you have at least 40 states in the United States that have legal cases currently against Meta and some of the other platforms. The part of this is being coordinated on a federal level, and it's a big deal. But if you look at the global landscape, this is actually not new, because there's been states and countries that have been fining Meta and have been fining some of the other big tech platforms like X. But a very interesting issue happened in Kenya, where there was 3 major lawsuits that had been filed in Kenya for $2.3 billion, alleging that Meta's algorithms contributed to the actual death and murder of an Ethiopian professor through hate speech. So that's an absolutely fascinating case. It'll be interesting to see, all that happens with that. And then lastly, you have a pattern of nation states, including over this past week, that are looking at installing stricter laws on what age can access social media in the first place.
So about 12 years or so ago, there was the huge push for Prop 230, it was then, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act of 1996, where it immunized the social media platforms for third-party content. But the thing is, this is not really, I guess some of the things for some of the cases are challenging the legality of Section 230, but to me, it's a completely different problem, because one, social media should not be held liable if I post something on it. However, it's their algorithms that are spreading that post and sending it to more and more people. And the algorithms are designed to get more interaction on their social networks in order to sell more ads. And of course, the interaction that gets people fired up is anger and just like those base reactions that are going to get people to interact with them. And so the algorithms push them more and more.
Right, exactly. That brings us to our attention getter. So I'm going to share the screen.
Okay.
Just 1 second here.
Sure.
Sorry. Okay. And I'm just going to play the first 30 seconds of this.
So I look at my phone and I see somebody tag me on a photo. What happens? I get a little burst of dopamine in the reward pathway in my brain. That's where pleasure comes from, right? But like that's where I experience like that little zing, like, ooh, cool. And it feels really good. After that's happened, 10, 20, 50, 100 times, it's not as exciting as it was the first time. That's the brain changing in response to that pleasurable experience. Things that are pleasurable don't stay pleasurable with a lot of repetition. That's neuroadaptation. With
Right. So the whole video is actually fascinating if you watch that whole video, and the link will be in the show notes. But it really explains how people are hardwired to have an addiction to dopamine, and that definitely can impact youth, especially with likes when they're in their middle school, high school age years. So I think that was a major theme in actually both of the recent court cases.
Right, and the algorithm pushing things out to go viral is basically, giving them like cocaine.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So we actually have a guest interview for this week. The guest wanted to remain anonymous. The interview was conducted with a 15-year-old subject. This 15-year-old is male. He does not necessarily represent most, 15-year-olds, because he would have to look at the demographics of city, state, and all that kind of stuff. But he did provide some pretty good insights on his media use and his screen time and social media use. And some of it does indicate some addictive behavior. And then he also addressed how some of his colleagues might be addicted. So I thought we could discuss each question and answer, and then, Kirby can give her insights on it.
Do you want me to, let's see. So I know we have them here.
Oh, and I forgot to say, he's a Gen Z on the cusp of Gen Alpha. So his social media consumption is different than older Gen Z.
Yeah. So the question, I was going to read the questions, but they're kind of mixed together in here. So I'm going to let you go ahead and read through it, and each bullet we'll talk about a little bit. But I want to say hello to Brave Traveler, who said hello, howdy to us.
Hi, Brave Traveler. Thank you for stopping by. So,
Okay.
Okay. So the first question was about whether or not he thought that there was an addiction issue with these platforms. His response was, well, social media addiction is a problem for his generation. He readily admitted that. And he knows of at least 2 people who appear to be addicted specifically to Instagram and meta addiction, that he believed it's more of a problem for older generations, and that many users in his age range use other platforms and actually may be addicted to those, specifically game platforms.
Right. And I can speak into this. I mean, Instagram, when you think about it, is very much a millennial Gen Z sort of thing. I mean, yes, he may not see people addicted to it yet, but they're really in the young ages. That when I say it's a thing, it's these court cases are a thing having to do with millennials and Gen Z, Gen Z, because there's data on that.
Right.
There's been time to be data on that, I think. And so while he may see people addicted to like gaming platforms, that stuff will morph to regular social media I mean, some of them are going to stay on the gaming, but when just socially and like life gets busy, work, et cetera, then those are easier to spend time on, whereas gaming, you have to pay a lot more attention. And so I think that we'll start to see those addiction patterns show up, not necessarily Instagram, although it could be Instagram, but Snapchat, et cetera. And Brave Traveler says, thank you for having me. See, I know I can read Leet speak. All right. So I think that the fact that he's not seen the addiction yet doesn't mean it's not there.
It's totally there. In fact, he agreed with me by the end of the interview that it actually is there. So we'll get there.
Well, we're going bullet by bullet. So I'm telling you what I'm thinking on this bullet.
And I think that's good. It's insightful to do so. Okay. The second one was I asked the participant to actually look at their phone settings. They happen to have an iPhone, to look at their time on what they spent the most time on. Possible addictive patterns were absolutely noted. And he said that it's probably not the norm for his school, and that there's actually kids in his school who do more than him. which was kind of surprising.
Is this time period over a week?
Yes, it's over a week. Yeah,
Okay.
this is a week time period.
You start hearing these hours, they can like,
Yeah. So point 1, 15 hours on Netflix. Point 2, 9 hours on Instagram, 11 hours on YouTube, 1 hour on messages, SMS, Signal, WhatsApp, 51 minutes on Spotify, and 5 hours on other apps.
I'm
So-
surprised it's 51 minutes on Spotify. But let's look at our own. Let's take a look at our own as we're going through here right now. So, Sarah, explain to people where they can get to this. I think it's just in general, right? I don't remember.
Well, if you're in an Apple, if it's an Apple device, Apple iPhone, you go under General Settings, and then you would go down to maybe
Maybe it's not in general settings.
Maybe it's not in General Settings. I'm gonna have to put that in notes. I forgot. I'm not even that old. Oh my god. Okay. So, in any case, it is somewhere, I thought, in
Screen
settings.
time. It's in the main one. You go down to screen time. It's underneath notification, sounds, and haptics, things like that.
Oh, okay. All right.
Time.
There we go.
Although I might have the wrong one too, but I'm seeing
there. Yeah. So you go to settings and you go down to screen time. You don't open up general.
Okay.
So my daily average for today on my phone was 6 hours and 8 minutes.
That's a daily average? So
No, that was just today. But in all fairness, I was using my phone as a computer to research real estate from midnight.
So my weekly is 14 hours on YouTube. That's the high one.
Okay. Oh,
4 hours weekly on Monopoly Go.
4 hours on Monopoly Go. Well, that's
okay. Well, because I play that with my sister, so we both compete. We team up on things on that one. So yeah, this is very interesting. Like what you end up finding in yours, and identify like how different are they from your teens. And
so
in their case, you were the teen who gave you the details from his phone.
Yeah, and it wasn't 6 hours for that was like over a few days. It was 6 hours, but right. Last week, my total screen time for last week was 24 hours and 35 minutes.
And so I think that's actually pretty decent, because you think of over 7 days, split it all up. I'm sure mine is more, although again, this computer that's sitting right in front of me gets most of my screen time. Okay, so we have like when you look at the ones from your interviewee. Netflix, I wouldn't say that Netflix is the same sort of thing, because although it does have an algorithm, but
it definitely has an algorithm. And the thing about Netflix, unlike old static TV, is that if you're in a series, you can keep watching that same series and not stop, versus having to wait from one episode to the next episode.
Which is exactly how I watch Netflix. I don't watch series until they're over, so I can see them when I want to and not have to wait a week.
Okay. Yeah.
You don't do that?
He does the same.
Yeah. So the thing about this all comes to me, like the thing that's thinking to me is algorithms, and the algorithms are kind of like pulling you in and like having you spend 15 hours on Netflix or 9 hours on Instagram, like the being able to doom scroll, where the algorithm keeps giving you the stuff that makes you scroll more, right? And no matter what social media it is. And so my thoughts on this are pretty complicated, because for one, algorithms can be really good. You don't just want to have to like, there's some things you would never discover if the tool didn't have an algorithm. However, I don't think they should be by default on. I think you should be able to opt in to an algorithm rather than opting out, or not having even the option to opt out of an algorithm. There was an argument like a couple of years back. I know there was like a bunch of the angel investors were furious that people were skipping an algorithm. And I can't remember if it was Twitter's algorithm at the time, which has always been rather mild compared to some of the other ones, or if it was Meta, I'm not sure, but there was some apps that were created to help you skip the algorithm and just look at your own friends lists. And some of the angel investors were furious that you would even consider doing that. And so there's a lot of apps that don't even let you do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I think that's an excellent point. I think part of it reminds me of when people use, like with this particular subject, and I mean, you would need a much larger sample to do a more representative study. This particular subject was showing more of what, you know, you would see in the 1980s with somebody complaining about the kid watching too much TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know,
right. Right.
Yeah.
Is it I don't know that, so the algorithms, I don't know, now that I think about it, maybe TV did have the precursor to algorithms. But what I'm thinking about here is like, okay, so the 9 hours on Instagram, right, for the week. If there was an algorithm, would that have been 4 hours? If it was just looking at what their friends were doing and not like kind of feeding into whatever it was already looking for. And I know, you know, TikTok's bad for this. You can sit there and scan the For You page, people you've never heard of, and see, you know, videos that go straight to your brain about what, you know, what you were interested in. And you could sit there and scan forever. And so that's why the algorithms exist, is to keep people on these apps longer. But again, I really wish there was a world where we opted in to say, okay, and maybe even we opt in, but you have to be 18 to opt in to the algorithm.
I think that's an excellent point. And one of the other things is when you look at a lot of these platforms, LinkedIn users, same here, but think of Netflix being on, but if you're home, you could be doing other things around the house. Your movies are about 2 hours each. That's true.
Yeah. So Netflix does like automatically pull you in for longer because you do have about 2 hour movie, or if you're going to watch a couple episodes of a series. I don't find that and I could be absolutely wrong, I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, but that Netflix algorithm is as harmful, because we're not talking about 6-7 second videos where you're flipping through and getting angry and maybe even interacting with them. In Netflix, you're not interacting, you're watching.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I still think though that when you add all these hours up, I mean, that's way over 24 hours. That's a significant amount of time. And then if you add that to the fact that most kids today, when they go to school, they're on a Chromebook, and they're on their Chromebook for 4 to 6 hours a day for school, you're now adding that 4 to 6 hours a day plus all of the hours that they're having on screen time outside of school. So in actuality, a lot of it ends up being virtual. And then how much of it, I think you raised an interesting question that there does need to be more research on specifically how much of it is algorithms. Yeah. So.
Yeah. Okay, next bullet.
Okay, next bullet was on what the participant does on the weekends. And they said on the weekends, they have blocks of gaming time. And that last week, it was probably 8 to 10 hours before Saturday and Sunday. And that during the school and then during the school week, they do a little gaming, but that they probably have 1 to 2 hours a day. Now, that's actually on top of the hours that I just gave, which was screen time on their phone.
Yeah, because we didn't mention the gaming hours.
Yeah. So now you're adding another, 10 to 15 hours to that number. And then they mentioned that at school, what I said, they spend 4 to 6 hours a day from their school laptop, at least 5 days a week. And that they actually he doesn't actually watch the TV that you like most people have in their house. And that he said that was actually a comment from many of his friends, that they don't bother to watch TV in the living room or whatnot.
I rarely watch TV in my living room. I do it on my phone. I do a YouTube. I actually have YouTube Premium.
Yeah. So and he was making the same point, is that he watches it on his phone or on his gaming laptop. And the next question was, I asked, so this equal to about 70 hours of his time a week, including school, on screens. And then 9 to 10 hours a day is spent on screens. And I thought at first, wow, this is really crazy. But in actuality, it's kind of normal for that age range, that a lot of kids are doing that. When you assume that, 4 to 6 hours of the day is on their school computer. And then the other things that was brought up is, he pointed out that a lot of this is learned from adults, and he will see adults out in public at like a restaurant, or me as a parent or somebody else. They'll see us, and they'll see us using our screens, and it's like, well, it's a learned behavior. So they're learning from Kirby or me or anybody else. So
and that just reminded me, there is a movie I just watched on Netflix, but I watched it on a TV with my aunt and uncle, with Michelle Pfeiffer in it. And it's, let's see, it's a fairly recent movie that she did. I'm going to look for it now because The Madison. Oh, so it's not it's a television series, The Madison. Have you heard of this one? Okay. So the only reason I bring this up is because I watched the first 2 episodes with my aunt and uncle, and this is on Paramount. And one of the things that happens is, like, her spouse passed away, and she's thinking about all the time everybody spends on their mobiles and everything. And so she's at dinner with her family, her 2 daughters and a spouse and a child, right, of one of the daughters. And so she's like, get off your phone, because they all have their phone right there. She's like, this is rude. And then not long after that, I went to a dinner, or no, maybe it was a breakfast with my aunt and uncle, and we're all on our phones until my uncle yells, rude. We're like, oh crap, stick that away, But it's true. It's like, you don't even think about it. You're like, okay, well, sit down. Let me look at something here while I'm talking to you. Even while I'm on, for example, sometimes Zoom meetings, I'll also have something going on here. Usually, if it's work related, it's related. But it's not necessarily like, especially if I'm on, I still do social Zooms. I don't know about you. I don't know about anybody else out there, but there's a lot of my friends who live far away, and we do some social Zooms, and I'll probably also have my phone up at the same time.
Yeah. Yeah. And the attention getter video that we had at the beginning of this episode, it does talk about how that pattern is actually rewiring people's brains, which is also interesting. But
there's another pattern as well, and I know, and I've seen articles about this, and I didn't bring any for this. Maybe sometime in the future I will. But like, what's on your main screen of your phone? It is such a habit now to just click it, because the algorithm has you like, scanning whatever. You're used to having something up. So whatever's on that main screen, if you want to use it less, put it behind the main screen, put it on some other screen. Or I put like groups. So there's like a social media group with a couple of apps, and then there's another page of apps past that. I rarely go to those back pages unless I very specifically need to go see those apps. So the stuff that's on my main page for my social media stuff, which I'll read out to you right now, social media. On my main page right now, I've got Signal, I've got WhatsApp, I've got Reddit, I've got LinkedIn, and I've got Substack. And then if I scroll back, that's where I find Facebook. That's where I find Instagram. That's where I find Snapchat. I don't go to those by reflex anymore. And I tell you what, it's freed me. I know I miss a lot of stuff on Facebook right now, because I know that friends and family are posting things and whatever, but honestly, I don't even think about it until somebody tells me, oh yeah, that was on Facebook. And Facebook exists. I love having it not on the main screen, but having it accessible.
Right. Yeah. No, I think that's very good advice. So the next question was, I asked, how would you feel without your mobile device, like your phone? The response was very uncomfortable, because that's how he communicates with the world.
Naked.
So
naked. I would compare it to like not having some item of clothes on.
Right. Yeah, that's a good analogy. And I asked, could you go a day without your phone? And the answer to that was yes, but that he would feel isolated, and use the word isolated and alienated. That is a very telltale kind of thing right there. So, I mean, there was one thing, LinkedIn user, I would have to take away phones for Sunday dinners from the kids, and boy, did our conversations really go well when those phones were out of sight. That's a great tactic. Yeah, that's like, an absolute.
Parents should have like a little bucket, and mealtime, you drop the phone in the bucket and you come into the dining room,
Yeah. Yeah. And so the next was asking whether or not, I asked the participant whether or not they thought they were, from their responses, whether or not they had addictive behavior. They said yes, they felt that they had some, and that the interview actually made them realize that they should spend less time, they said, YouTube and Netflix and on their phone in general. And I thought that was really interesting because I think that, if you did this kind of interview with a lot of other participants, they might have similar responses where they're like, oh, wait a minute, this is what I'm doing, because they're probably not thinking about the fact that they're doing it consciously. And then they said that they deviated from other kids because, and this was interesting, they said they deviated from other kids because they did not have any connected strangers in their Discord groups.
So that most of the people that they know have strangers that they've never met in their Discord groups.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Which I would say that's of concern. I mean, this one, he's saying, oh, this is abnormal, but it's normal for
at the same time. It's totally normal. Yeah, because I'll give an example. I know someone who's now a young college student who in the gaming groups made friends with somebody that was completely unknown, out of left field, via Discord. Now they're good buddies. They go to different colleges, but they go and hang out like in the summers together. They go on spring break together. Their parents have spoken to each other. I mean, it's been like they've met each other because of that. But again, you don't know who's behind that screen. Who's going to be that person who's going to turn out to be real in what they say they are, and who's going to be not.
Right. Yeah, and I think especially when you're under 18, and absolutely when you're under 16, that shouldn't be happening, because that youth is at a very vulnerable position.
Or at the very least, should have visibility into it.
Yeah, I agree. That's a good point, Kirby. He did admit that he doom scrolls some on YouTube, but he also said that he believed his parents, especially his mom, doom scrolled more than him, and that it seemed to be a problem with many adults. And I'm wondering if that's because it's a difference in what platforms are popular with his gen versus gen before. Because most adults.
Also, what is? Let's define doom scrolling first, because I think that's part of what it is too. Doom scrolling is like when you are scrolling because you are fearful or angry or whatever, right? It's when you are scrolling and it's like not giving you dopamine, it's giving you the other emotions. Right. So I think that in most cases, kids aren't going to go looking for that. And it's not that adults look for that. It's just that when like things are happening around us, we can't avoid dealing with it because we are the adults. And therefore, when we see it on social media, we want to we want to know what's happening, even if it's horrible. I don't know. To be quite honest, kids might think that way too. I'm not the psychiatrist, so.
Well, I think they do to a degree, but he also said that he preferred looking at YouTube more for like things that he wanted to look up as far as topics he liked. But that if there was something in the news that caught his attention, that he would end up doing some doom scrolling on YouTube. He actually did make a really interesting comment though on news, and that was that he doesn't really watch a lot of news. He's not really in touch with watching news, but that when he does, and I don't think this is probably representative of most 15-year-olds. I'm not sure, we'd have to sample more. He said he likes to watch BBC as it is more neutral and prefers that over right or left-leaning news. And I don't know if that was like from watching adults. Again, that could be something that could be a learned behavior from watching adults who are going left or going right.
Right.
That would be an interesting follow-up question.
Or it could be a reaction to it's the not needing to doom scroll, not seeing not wanting to listen to the negative stuff, and just get no opinion on it. Just here's what happened. Right.
Yeah. I think that's a good one. And then The last kind of question he was asked was whether or not he thinks social media addiction is a problem for his age group. He did say that it absolutely was a problem for his age group, but he also did highlight that it was a problem for people that were older and
Only I'm almost certain that's only because there's data, because there has been more time for those people on social media. We have more data.
Yeah.
Someone Gen Z has 10 years of social media on somebody who's Gen A.
That's true. That's true. Absolutely. I think that's true. I think the other part of it, though, is I think that it's their addictive behavior, and it goes back to the earlier the court case like big tobacco. If you see your parents smoke,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of kids who saw their parents smoke or around smoke, they smoked.
Yep.
So I don't know if there's a correlation with the same thing with algorithms and social media. You see your parents doom scrolling. So do you scroll? I don't know.
Maybe. Again, maybe all those doom scrolling apps need to be on the second page, so there's not a reflex to open it and then get stuck into it. Anyway, we're going to cut this one short as well. I know normally we try to go an hour, but I am speaking at PFIC 2026 in about 25 minutes or so. So I'm going to run over to that. Well, I'm going to stay on my same computer actually, but I'm going to jump over to that one. And I just want to say thank you so much, Sarah, if you want to prompt up our slop. And then
and please join us next week for OSINTirl, where we will be discussing the Fediverse.
Yes, we'll do the Fediverse, and we will have a full hour next week.
Yes.
All right.
Okay.
And Sarah, as far as sharing these things, you can pre-share them because I can put them on or take them off. So.
Okay. Well, it is on the AI slop.
Go ahead. AI slop of the week. Go ahead.
This tooth, it's unbelievable.
What is that?
No way, that's a dorsal fin. Oh my God, it's a megalodon. This tooth, it's unbelievable.
What is that?
No way, that's a dorsal fin. Oh my God, it's a megalodon.